We are going live with Pierre Novellie. Give me a second till I bring him on. This is super, super, super big for me. Hi, Pierre. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Amazing.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How you doing?
I am good. I'm good. Thank you for doing this on a Saturday morning. This is fabulous. Thank
That's
you.
my pleasure. Thank you for doing it on I guess, a Saturday
It
afternoon.
is Saturday afternoon for me. So this worked out perfectly. I'm halfway through your book and as an autism geek, I am so excited by it. So thank you for writing that.
Thank you
Pierre,
very much.
amazing. I'm going to quickly introduce you to everyone who's going to listen to this and then we'll get right into it. So thank you. This is so great. Okay. So Pierre Novellie is a big British stand-up comedian. He's a writer, radio host, podcaster. Lots of us in India know Comedy Central. So for reference, he's been on that. He's done TV appearances across most world's most dangerous roads, The MASH Report. He's been on the co-host of the Frank Skinner show on Absolute Radio. Been hosted the BBC, hosts the BBC Sound podcast series. Done like a lot of other podcasts around. He's been a writer and been a regular writer on the rebooted Spitting Image. Written shows including Mock the Week and for BBC Two, the News Quiz, and the MASH Report. And I saw that you're doing a bunch of shows across the UK and around over the next 6 months. So that looks really, really exciting. I have family and cousins who stay there. I'm sure they're going to be really excited.
Great.
So awesome. All right. So I'm going to let you take a minute to kind of talk a little bit more about you, a little more than what your about says on your website.
That pretty much covers it. I mean, I'm a professional stand-up, and uh, I wrote the book partially because I realized how much, even as someone who got diagnosed as an adult, I did not know. And I mean, I also had a friend growing up with what would have been called Asperger's syndrome back then.
Right.
Um, and so I was surprised at my own level of misunderstanding. Um, and one of the things you learn doing comedy, especially satire, not that that's the main thing I do, but I've written satire, is people don't really listen to things unless they're funny or they have a better reason to. And everyone has their own pet interest, right? I mean, if you are very into sustainability, then you won't know very much about multiple sclerosis. And if you do lots of fundraising for MS, then you won't know about whatever the next thing is. So it's
Right.
very, very hard to get people to listen to you about a new problem they have no connection with,
Right.
unless
Right.
it's funny. So I thought if I could make a book that explains this stuff to people and also make it funny, then there's a slim chance they might actually read it.
Yeah. No. That's fabulous. I mean, for people who might listen to this, I run a foundation for autism, which is Brain Bristle. And when I started studying autism, which was 2009, there was Asperger's and there was autism. And then through my last 15 years, it's all got merged. And I'm trying to do stuff in India, but otherwise, I'm a writer. So I fully related with a lot of what you've written, and I know a lot of people who kind of have had similar life experiences. So talk a little bit more about your book, Pierre. You're like, why can't I just enjoy things? Um, just take us through a little brief through it and about it and how much, like, I saw that you've given a lot of yourself out and, you know, your growing up in your years and your issues and food and relationships and your struggles. So talk a little bit about the book.
Well, yeah, I mean, I structured it so that each chapter was like a subsection of something to do with autism, like food issues, sensory issues.
Yeah.
Um, and well, because the goal was to make it funny, and if you're a comedian, you always talk analogously, you always use sort of sideways examples or
Yeah.
inherently personal examples. I realized through doing the reading for the sort of 2 years after my diagnosis, and part of that was for the book as well, that I
Yeah.
kind of had a personal anecdote to illustrate almost any section of the book, whether I liked it or not. Um, And yeah, that's one of the ways to sort of make the material less dry and to maybe incentivize people more to read it.
Yeah. No, that sounds good. So let's talk a little bit about you, getting diagnosed on the spectrum of autism in your early 30s. What led to that? And did you always feel a little different? I'm sure you got this question enough, but yeah,
Uh, yeah, definitely always weird. But then I moved to the UK, well, to the Isle of Man from South Africa when I was a kid. So I was one of the maybe two or three other kind of properly foreign kids who I knew. So there was always a very good explanation for being different, which
yeah,
sort of disguised it for a long time. But yes, I got diagnosed because I was doing a show. The show was called Why Can't I Just Enjoy Things? The book is named after the show.
right.
I was doing a show in Bristol and sort of rhetorically asking that question. Um, and the guy in the crowd sort of heckled me, sort of said, "Well, you just sound like me."
Yeah,
And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "Well, I have Asperger's, and I think you do as well." And it's sort of I'd been told that before
yeah,
by a couple of people, but
yeah,
I never really took it that seriously. But then after that heckler, I did more research and realized how much my reasons for not taking it seriously were based on unrepresentative stereotypes about the condition as opposed to proper factual understanding of how it worked.
yeah. Can I ask you a question simply because of my own curiosity? I know you've talked, not written about this really, but do you think it's because of your career in performing arts? You've been a podcaster, you've been a radio host, you're a professional stand-up comedian, and you've done that for so many years. Do you think that that job requires you to be performing and speaking and orating and talking? And do you think that like that kind of like played with the wires of your brain? I mean, autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder. So do you think that kind of played with it and led to you finally getting diagnosed? Or do you think, had you been in another career, you wouldn't have got diagnosed? Had you just been,
I see. Uh, I think being a professional comedian means that you're self-employed, so it's definitely gonna push any buttons you have about lack of structure.
yeah,
Um, I probably, yeah, that's an interesting thought. I suppose if I'd stuck with a more technical job, I could have
just,
avoided it. But uh, yeah, it's hard to say, really. Being in
yeah,
comedy, certainly in the UK, does put you on slightly more of a cutting edge of a lot of social
right,
understanding movements. So a
yeah,
lot of probably the only place more on it when it comes to sort of social movements than comedy is academia.
yeah,
So we're always on the cutting edge. So maybe I wouldn't have, or maybe it would have taken a much, much longer time. Yeah. Yeah, it's
yeah.
true.
Yeah, because autism diagnosis has just tripled over the last 100 years, and I think that we're pushing ourselves more and more into the world, especially artists, creative people, performing people. So maybe like that's giving us more awareness, more, just more insight into the subject. Is the book available through all normal retailers? Yes, it is. I just bought it off Amazon.
Yes.
Um,
And it
yeah,
is in audio form,
yeah,
Paul. There,
yeah, yeah.
I
Okay.
read the audiobook, so there you go.
Okay, so awesome. So Pierre, talk a little bit about your growing up years. Like, what were you like in school? Were you? I know I watched some comedy that you were always social and always out there. But talk a little bit more about. Did you think you were on something was off different when you were?
Yes.
You did.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was not very sociable. I was sociable till, and this seems to be quite a common thing from what I've read. I was sociable till 11 and then not
Yeah,
sociable till I was sort of 15 or 16 again, at which
yeah,
point I had sort of taught myself how people worked.
yeah,
So there's a good 5 year gap there.
yeah,
Apparently, the transition between stages of life tends to create that problem. So
yeah,
primary school to high school to university, university to real world jobs. Those
yeah,
or each of those stages could completely, if you've learned to exist in an environment and it's taken you a bit of time, and then the environment changes completely, then you will be undermined by that.
Right.
But yeah, I like at school. I was funny, but only in my own head. I never really said anything funny out loud until I was maybe 16 or something.
Yeah.
Then I thought, oh, I think I'm thinking something funny, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't say it.
Yeah.
I might whisper it to one person
Yeah.
next to me, but
Yeah. Yeah.
so not a class clown really.
Yeah. And then you kind of like slowly started to get confident with your, with your funny observational humor, and that led you to become a stand-up comedian.
Yeah, well, people would just get older, and
Yeah.
when you're 14 or 13, something like an insult being clever is not interesting. It actually makes it more boring.
Yeah.
So you just come across like a nerd, even when you're trying to be, trying to be part of some sort of to and
Yeah.
fro. But once
Yeah.
you get to 17, 18, and all that stuff starts to matter, then it starts to carry some sort of social cachet.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk a little bit about in your 20s, while you were in the, you were always a performer, you were on stage. Did you like go through spells of anxiety, like, panic, worry, feeling stressed out about lack of structure, being pushed a lot? Did you go to therapy? Did what was it like in your 20s when you were at the
It,
peak of your, yeah.
it's a very chaotic lifestyle. The thing
Yeah.
with something like stand-up is that no one cares if you stop doing it.
Yeah.
It's not like you're the only doctor in a village. It's not
Yeah.
like you're a teacher or a whatever. It's completely voluntary on your behalf. There's plenty of other people who are trying to do it. No one cares if you quit. And
Yeah.
at least in the UK, in order to get anything made, you have to kind of just write it for free first, a lot
Yeah.
of the time.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult to get motivated because I could logic myself out of it by saying, well, I could spend the next 3 days
Yeah.
writing this script, but no one's going to pay me for that.
Yeah.
They might pay me for it in 6 years if
Right.
it gets made, which it has a sort of 1 in 1,000 chance of, And so you just go, well, what's the point? And so I think one of the problems of being autistic is that we're very good at logicking ourselves in and out of mindsets that may or may not be particularly helpful.
Yeah.
Whereas if I just shut up and got on with it and maybe had a more of a naive, from my point of view, naive dreamer's mindset of just like, well, who knows? Maybe it will work.
Right.
Then, I'd have
Yeah.
a bunch of scripts written
Yeah.
by now.
Yeah.
So that was difficult because there's no top-down incentive. So lack of structure, I can navigate okay. I can create my own structure to an extent, but the lack of top-down incentives is very, very difficult to compensate for.
Right.
Like not having a boss, not having a deadline, not having a
Right.
salary,
Right.
things of that nature.
Yeah. So Pierre, I know a lot of 17, 16, 18-year-olds on the spectrum of autism because I've advised their classrooms and I advise their curriculums. It's a really high pressure job. I mean, I know kids, I knew teenagers who were really funny, but it's a really high pressure job to do that as a career, to go out there, make people laugh, uh, come up with new stuff often. How do you cope up with the pressure of that? Because some of the biggest meltdowns that I saw were, we would see one time hit, two times, success, but by the third or fourth time, these big teenage boys were just like, I'm out of here, I'm not doing this, I'm failing the course. So talk a little bit about how do you deal with this pressure?
It is pressure, but early on, I used the sort of autistic logic to say to myself, well, look, here's an observation that sort of explains it. I've got friends who aren't comedians, they do normal jobs.
Yeah.
And they'll go see a comedy show, and
Yeah.
I'll say to them, how was the comedy show? And they'll say, oh, my face hurts. I laughed so much I nearly threw up. This guy changed my mind about 4 different things, and oh, amazing.
Yeah.
I'll say, wow, who was that? And they'll go, I don't know.
Yeah.
I say, you don't know their name? They go, no, I don't remember the name.
Yeah.
And I go, well, were they English or Scottish? Or he'll go, yeah, they were English. They just don't remember.
Yeah.
And that's someone who just changed their life. they made them nearly sick with laughter.
Yeah.
They did as well as they could do, and they don't remember the guy's name.
Yeah.
So how much do you think they're going to remember your name when you're a new comedian doing 5 minutes and you
Right.
suck? They're
Right.
not going to remember. They don't
Right.
care. And the other thing is, most people fear public speaking because it does matter. If you work for Microsoft and you do a big speech at the Microsoft conference and you
Right.
fail, you could
Right.
get fired. You could
Totally.
lose a promotion. If
Totally.
I do badly at a gig in front of some strangers in the tiny village I don't live in, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'll never see those people again. Their
Right.
opinions are irrelevant.
Right.
So once you can logic yourself into that, all that remains is your ego.
Yeah.
And if you just decide that that's just, the risk that you've accepted taking, but also you can comfort yourself with the fact that the blow to your ego by sucking on stage does not actually matter. No one's going to break your legs.
Right.
You don't lose any money. Then you just do it,
Yeah.
And the difference as well with something like a course like you're talking about is that if you get on stage, you get a lot of adrenaline.
Yeah.
You get a lot of chemical reward.
Right.
You get a feeling of status or achievement or
Right.
risk,
Right.
which you don't get from studying.
Right.
So it's a lot easier to get addicted to it, even if you're bad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, I fully hear you for sure. So let's get into a little bit about talk about masking because you're in a you're a performer. I have friends who are actors or I have friends who are always on stage in some way. And then they're exhausted after that for like 24 hours they shut down. I sometimes do these big gigs where I have to perform and after that I'm just exhausted. Talk a little bit about how is that different from autistic masking? And I'm sure you have friends who are neurotypical comedians. How do you think you are different from them?
There are surprisingly few neurotypical comedians now, at least in my generation. It's at least ADHD, if not a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, Unshowered. I'm glad I inspired you.
yeah,
That's a good name.
yeah,
Thank you very much for saying that. I don't know. Maybe it's the same as masking, but it's more intense. And I suppose if you're an actor, I mean, it's been a
yeah,
long time since I did a play or anything, but part of the problem is that it's someone else's words.
yeah,
Whereas I suppose at least autistic masking is like a lower intensity version, but for the whole day.
yeah,
And also, part of it is adrenaline crash. I mean, comedians have this. It's one of the reasons why so many comedians will have a drink after a show, is
yeah,
that you're trying to just come back down
yeah,
to earth. Um, yeah, I think one of the things that attracts neurodivergent people to comedy is the fact that when you're backstage with other comedians, that is a situation in which masking itself is punished and not masking is rewarded.
yeah,
So if you're chatting to other comedians and they sense any sort of fakeness or office style politeness,
right, right, right,
talking about the weather
yeah,
or trying to seem professional,
yeah,
it really, really tends to put people off.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Whereas
yeah,
what does get highly valued is sort of any sort of brutal honesty or
yeah,
uncomfortable
yeah,
truths. And
yeah,
so if you end up blurting that stuff out anyway, you'll be
yeah,
more welcome.
yeah. No, that's super interesting. And so, sorry, let me get into that. So tell me, like, I'm going to talk a little bit about, relationships, friendships, like, you're a comedian, going out there, you're putting stuff out there every day. You're also navigating your personal relationships, your friendships. Has your autism or has your comedy career ever hurt those in any way? How do you manage all of that?
Comedy career, definitely, because you're never free on the weekends.
Yeah,
Um, I wasn't really free on the weekend for my whole 20s, so you miss a lot of weddings,
yeah,
you miss a lot of hen do, stag do,
yeah, yeah,
that definitely, you do drift apart from people who aren't as free at the same time as you, just inevitably. Um, in terms, and in relationships as well, it meant that it was largely impossible to go on dates with anyone normal because they'd be
yeah,
busy, on the week
yeah,
and free on the weekend.
yeah,
Um, Other than that, I think generally just communication differences. The big problem problem I always had, and I suppose if we're going to be fair, the big problem the other person always had as well, because there is no correct way of being, was always that I, like a lot of autistic people, say exactly what I mean. Everyone else is busy interpreting.
Yeah.
Neurotypical communication is so interpretation based, especially in a culture like the UK where it's rude to say what you mean and you have to speak deliberately and directly.
Yeah.
That makes it sort of twice as intense, I think, where
Yeah.
people will just sort of go, oh, well, oh, it's good weather today, and then a normal person seemingly will interpret that as, oh, this person wants to go outside.
Yeah.
They've said it's good weather, so they must want to go outside. Or they've said
Right.
it's good weather, so they must want to have a barbecue later. Or they're saying it because they're annoyed because they were supposed to have a barbecue yesterday and it was raining, and that's a comment on them.
Yeah.
Whereas if I
Yeah.
say that, I'm just commenting that it's good weather. I have no
Right.
interest in anything beyond
Right.
that. And
Right.
so
Right.
if you just say what you mean and everyone else is doing this interpretation thing, it's this constant battle to try and convince people that you're not speaking in code.
Right. 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 Right.
And everyone else's constant battle to try and force you to admit that actually you were speaking in code the whole time. And so
Yeah.
you end up thinking the other person is an anxious, neurotic mess, and the other person ends up thinking that you're some sort of liar.
Right. 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 Right.
Then, obviously, of course, that's not going to work because neither of you
Yeah.
really believe the other one could possibly want
Yeah.
to communicate in this extraordinary way.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. No, no, no. I fully understand what you're talking about. Tell me, so when you came out with your diagnosis of autism, how was it received by, the thousands of people who watch you, follow you? Yeah.
Um, I don't know really. They don't. I imagine they didn't notice any difference.
Yeah.
A lot of people who enjoyed my comedy in a very personal way went and got diagnosed themselves, according to
Yeah.
what they've sent me in messages and
Yeah.
things. Otherwise, I think people, if they like your comedy, they like this thing you produce, they'll just go along with it, really. It doesn't really change the equation for them.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, don't I don't imagine it wouldn't make sense for anyone to have some sort of negative reaction unless they
Yeah.
thought maybe it wasn't worth talking about. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, otherwise, the thing with something like autism is that it turns out that all the comedy you were making was autistic comedy the whole time. You know, nothing's
Yeah.
changed. That's the difference between, say, realizing something about yourself and then the sort of coming out thing. If you were gay, then what that would mean would be ceasing to deny actively. So if
Yeah.
a comedian came out as, say, gay or something, then that could change the content of what they're talking about because now they're
Right.
talking
Right.
about their new life
Right.
and their self-acceptance of and da da da. But with autistic comedy, it's just the same. I mean, I talk more specifically about it, but I mean, I go through my old routines and they
Yeah.
all stuff to do with misophonia, sensory issues,
Yeah.
confusion at people's ridiculous social rituals, whatever.
Yeah.
It's all very autistic
Yeah.
inherently, and I think stand-up comedy is quite a friendly medium for that.
Yeah. So tell me, has your comedy have you has your comedy changed once, like after your diagnosis? Do you get more ideas, like a fresh new wave of new things you could make your next few shows about? Was it kind of like a welcome diagnosis?
Um, I suppose it was welcome in the sense that it is self-knowledge. I mean, the material's kind of the same. It's just that now I have a cause for it. It was something to talk about, but I
Yeah.
mean, I've never really struggled with coming out with material. It's been
Right.
more about refining. I've got friends who, when they do a work in progress show, they'll say, "Oh, I was only up there for 15 minutes or something," you know, because they'll
Yeah.
only have 15 minutes of material. If I do a work in
Right.
progress show, I'm talking for an hour. It just might not be
Right.
any good.
Right.
But talking about whatever, just content
Yeah.
creation, I can do that. It just might not be very good.
Yeah.
So it's about refining more than
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
But it was a
Yeah.
welcome explanation, but then it did remove a lot of my confusion. So I can't go on stage and say, why are you people like this?
Yeah.
When now I know the answer.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I ask you another question about this? How much do you think that age plays a role in removing, self-doubt and confusion, and how much do you think it's the diagnosis?
Mm.
Because yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Age definitely helps. Although, to be fair, I mean, there's a lot of teenagers out there with no self-doubt.
yeah,
So maybe the doubt creeps in somewhere between teenager and
that's right. I think so.
middle aged.
Yeah,
Um, I think the diagnosis is good for it just because something I put in the book was if you get diagnosed, you gain certainty, but you lose hope. And so what you
yeah,
do is you gain the ability to be certain
yeah.
that those noises that annoy you will annoy you forever. That's
Right.
it. So you go, okay, that's it. It's
Yeah,
something I have to just accept.
right,
And then that can be quite confidence boosting or make you seem more self-assured.
right,
And then the hope you lose is the hope that someday maybe you wouldn't notice the noises at all. You
right,
will
right, right.
always notice them. You're stuck like this.
Yeah,
But now that
yeah, yeah,
you know that, you can do something with it.
yeah. No, for sure. In fact, and when I've studied autism and I've worked in the space of autism a lot, there's a lot of commonalities between people who come out of, like, people who are suffering post-traumatic stress disorder and those who just recently got diagnosed. Those noises, those triggers, those fears kind of resemble in some way until you slowly grow out of them, or they silence out a little bit. So yeah, no, I get that. So talk a little bit about is talk a little bit about the UK and autism, and are most of your friends neurotypicals? Are they all kind of like somewhere on the spectrum?
Well, I thought they were more neurotypical, but as time has gone on, for fun, I've sent them, like the RADS R test or something like that, and
Yeah,
they've scored higher than you'd think,
yeah,
So there does seem to be social clustering at work. Um,
yeah,
and something that does happen is if you spend enough time with comedians or just my general friend group who's a bit more neurodivergent in
right,
some way, even if it's just a
right.
bit of a higher test score than normal.
Yeah,
And then you go from that to hanging out with someone who's definitely completely neurotypical. It's quite hard. It's quite a gear shift because they don't communicate
yeah,
in the same way, and you forget that. It's easy to start thinking that well, that's how people hide without getting diagnosed, right? Because they have seven other autistic friends without realizing,
right,
and they all hang out together and
right, right,
reinforce each other, which
right,
is
right, right.
which is fine, very comfortable, but
Yeah,
it's not quite representative.
yeah, yeah. No, no, my ex-boyfriend was British, and he always was like, "Do you think I'm autistic?" I'm like, "No, I just think that you're British." But yeah.
I think
Anyway, uh,
I think part of the British character that is coincidentally similar to the autistic character is self-doubt and anxiety.
yeah,
I think if you're autistic, you get taught self-doubt and anxiety by being wrong all the time and punished all the time.
right.
And then I think if you're British, you get taught that through different systems. But the
Yeah,
end result is an anxious, self-doubting person. So I
right,
think
right.
that's probably
I
why
think
there's the
so.
similarity there. Yeah.
I think so.
Love
Uh,
of rules.
yeah. So, so talk about anything else, that makes like that's cool about being in the spectrum of autism. Like,
Um,
how do you think what's the superpower that you get with?
oh, the superpowers thing. I mean, I don't know. I'm quite lucky in the sense that I have a very good memory for things that are interesting to me, like topics. So that was very good for exams.
Yeah,
Um, However, I don't have a good memory for people's
yeah,
names or for things that don't interest me. So I
yeah,
couldn't use the sort of superpower to do well at things at school that I didn't like. I could only use it to do well at things I liked anyway. So it wasn't that powerful in that sense. I wish I could have used it for
yeah,
maths, and I would have, as opposed to hating maths and working on it uh, um, the long way, as opposed to just naturally remembering stuff. Otherwise, I suppose just the general autistic stuff of understanding systems better or faster, which is, not a given across the board at all, but is fairly statistically proven out by people who are sort of ASD level one or whatever the Hi,
Mm.
Joss. Good
Yeah.
day
Yeah.
to you as well. Good evening, I guess, in Australia.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how much of it is superpower, or that's the hard thing, isn't it? How much of it is superpower? How much of it could I potentially have had anyway?
Yeah.
But then we're talking about such deep brain structure level stuff that we don't understand remotely. Then
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
And
some stuff
I
sticks in my
think I
head and
think
some stuff doesn't.
intelligence. I think their intelligence sometimes unlocks based on the situation. So I know a lot of young people on the spectrum of autism who I didn't see a certain level of intelligence with, but as situations threw them in different things, their intelligence just and their superpowers or what they're really good at emerge. One of them is at the Paris Olympics right now, and I could
Yeah.
never think that he'd make it there. But yeah,
Oh,
I think
wow.
it emerges. Yeah, I think it emerges with situations. The more you push yourself.
A lot of people thought I was very stupid
Yeah,
growing up.
yeah,
Um, not necessarily teachers, although a couple of teachers thought I was quite stupid. But yeah, quite a lot of people did think I was a sort of idiot. But I think it was because, you know, if you ask a question that seems obvious
yeah.
to people, or then you seem stupid.
Right,
I think I often seem stupid because I would listen more to people's words than to the logic of the situation.
right.
So, just to make up an example, if I was sitting in a
Yeah,
classroom and there was a crossword puzzle that we were doing,
yeah,
and the teacher misspoke and said, "Do the Sudoku," or something like that, something lesser,
yeah,
obviously a mistake than that,
yeah.
then I wouldn't do the crossword. I would spend time looking for the Sudoku on the other side of the page.
Right.
And if the teacher thinks that, oh, it's obvious what I
Yeah,
meant, then you seem like an idiot who can't interpret. But in reality,
yeah.
from my point of view, they're an idiot who can't talk properly.
Right.
So, again, it's just communication difficulties. But if you spend your life being miscommunicated to by neurotypicals, then and understanding them literally and responding to what they mean,
Yeah,
in the same way that people think computers can be stupid,
yeah,
they'll say, "Oh, what is this? The stupid machine shut down," and it's like,
yeah,
well, it's because you told it to. You just didn't mean to.
yeah,
You made the mistake.
yeah.
Um, the computer was responding exactly as you actually asked it to. You're
Right,
just annoyed that you asked the wrong thing.
right.
So I think that can be the reason behind a lot of the complete misassessment of intelligence,
Yeah,
um, because in reality, people are leading that assessment with a social idea as opposed to a literal idea.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So my other question for you is, I've seen a couple of your comedy clips and I've read through some of your stuff, and all comedians have a sense of self-deprecating humor. Um, with autism already kind of like putting you in this bubble of I've got these issues that I need to sort out. And then you've got to create humor that's kind of like humble and self-deprecating. How does that play out on your sense of self and your self-respect and your just sense of being?
I suppose it's easier in the UK because in the UK you get a lot of what you would call reverse status signaling.
Yeah,
So in the UK, the more jewelry you wear, if you're English, this is, or British
yeah,
rather, the more jewelry you wear and the more you talk about money, the more people will think that you actually don't have money.
totally. Yeah,
Or they'll say, oh, well, they're trying to make some sort of point about
yeah,
money, and that's right.
yeah,
Whereas you see people who are genuinely rich to an oligarch level in the UK, who they'll dress nicely and they'll live in a big house, but it'll still just be a suit.
yeah,
It won't be ostentatious at
yeah,
all. So the UK is a culture where self-deprecation is actually heavily rewarded.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And if you were in a job interview, you could be self-deprecating. You literally don't even have to sell yourself that hard in job interviews,
yeah,
perhaps. You could say, oh,
yeah,
well, I did all right. And
yeah,
everyone interviewing you will know that what you mean is,
yeah,
not only am I brilliant and I did brilliantly,
yeah,
but I'm also clever enough to know that I shouldn't say that.
yeah,
Whereas in America, there's a thing with comedians where if you're a British comedian and you try and do something in America,
Yeah.
you go to America and they say, so how well are you doing in your
Yeah.
career? And you'd be
Yeah.
British and go, yeah, no, oh, it's okay. I've got some
You're
projects.
right.
And they'll go, oh, this guy's just new. He's shit.
Yeah.
Why are we having a meeting then if you're not the
Yeah.
best in the world? You're
Right.
supposed to talk yourself up in America.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
it's easier to do self-deprecating comedy in the UK inherently because that's the mass culture that you're in, and it's
Yeah.
understood to be not necessarily devastatingly literal.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I mean and if it's true, and I have some very disorganized drawers, but it doesn't affect it shouldn't affect your sense of selfhood
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
just drawers.
Yeah. 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 Interesting. Anything else? So while like because India was colonized by the British for so long, we get a lot of what you have. We live in this closed, tight, formal structure of saying things, not saying things, all of that. But we're far, far, far behind when it comes to autism. Even if somebody thinks they're in the spectrum of autism, a diagnosis would be the last thing they do. Is there something about autism or your new book or your upcoming tours that you want to kind of tell before we kind of close out? Anything else?
Um, I suppose I think the situation would change more globally if we just increase the level of understanding. I mean, it's quite strange that, well, I don't know. Do you think that the awareness of figures like Elon Musk and Greta Thunberg as autistic has opened things up a bit to people sort of going, oh, you can be a sort of important global figure with this condition?
Yeah.
Um,
You know, Pierre, honestly, I think the big difference between India and the UK or the States with autism is the same difference between a developing country and a developed country. While we see Elon Musk or while we see a Pierre, out there being in the spectrum doing amazing things, we can't imagine ourselves doing the same. It's aspirational, but we're scared to kind of get there.
yes, and it's hard to destigmatize it because,
For sure.
I mean, no one likes the idea of anything inherently being different or
That's
wrong.
right. That's right.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I suppose it will be a very gradual thing. And it's difficult as well. I mean, I tried to keep balance in the book because in the UK we've had the superpower idea for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, but that sort of started to finish its
Yeah.
job. People are more aware of the superpower thing often now than they are aware of the problem thing.
Right.
And so there's a risk in some groups in the UK that have pointed it out, or some people I've talked to have said they've had parents who have real difficulty getting help for their kid who needs special assistance
Right. Right.
because the people who are in charge of the help think the kid has superpowers,
Right.
instead
Right.
of instead of needing a lot of support or having an extra carer or
Right.
someone in the classroom.
Right.
So
Right.
whatever you do, there's always a downside. But I suppose what's the strategy? I mean, you try and push the superpower thing for 30 years and then switch to the
Yeah.
to the bad thing for 10 and then superpower again
Yeah.
for another 10 years. And yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's going to take a long time, but I think the internet's speeding it up massively. I mean, I think that's why Gen Z are so hyper aware of neurodivergence.
Yeah.
The TikTok, they learn about it so much
Yeah.
faster.
Yeah. I also think that because we're so highly globalized, where, through TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, I just have access to the whole world.
Yeah.
So competition, hustle, all of that is increased so much that I think sometimes in India, people on the spectrum don't know how to make their way forward. So they just like get dimmed as compared to a neurotypical bright kid who just navigate their way through the competition. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're right about the globalized media thing. It's we're all looking at the same memes now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else before we close out? This was so great because I know a lot of Indian moms and parents and schools are gonna listen to this, and lots of my writer friends and comedian friends will listen to this and might get diagnosed after this.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Yeah,
I would like to. I've heard nothing but good things about gigging out in India.
yeah,
Apparently, the crowds are great, and I would like to see. You know, the I understand it from a South African point of view in the sense that, like, I was told that in a lot of the comedy clubs in India, the setup can be in English, but the punchline will be in Hindi or Gujarati or
yeah.
so the punchline language is the local language, but the setup language is English, and you get that in South Africa as well.
Right.
Do you think that do you think that there will ever be uh, how long do you think it will take for there to be enough provision, at least at a sort of maybe at a state level in India for this kind of thing? Is there a lot of information available, or do you find yourself having to fill in an enormous gap?
There's an enormous gap also because India presents itself with so many problems, and every like in a classroom there's so many other problems that a teacher's dealing with daily that really excel a child on the spectrum is becomes less of a priority.
Yeah,
I mean, like
yeah.
a state-run school in India, there's poverty, there's hunger, there's malnutrition. There's just so much that we're dealing with.
Why
Yeah.
would you focus on the quiet kid?
Right. Why
Yeah,
would you focus on an autistic kid just quietly playing with his Rubik cube or
yeah.
whatever else? So
He's
yeah,
the relief. He's the one who
yeah,
you can safely leave alone.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're far behind. But anyway, this is super helpful. Kind of gives me the motivation to keep doing what I do. So
Well,
thank you.
thank you for doing
Thank
it, and thank you for
you.
inviting me onto
Thank
this
you. Thank you.
Instagram Live.
Thank you. This was great, and I'll try and watch all your shows on YouTube or wherever you post them. So
Okay,
that'll
thank
be
you.
awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Cheers. Thank you so
Thank you for
much,
having
Pierre.
me.
Have a lovely
Cheers.
weekend.
You
Take care.
too.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.